Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Nice to see everybody. Chag Sameach. I think Daniel walked out on purpose in his humility, but we already have to give him a big congratulations for putting this together every week. So, Daniel said not to say anything, but he ran out. And put your hands together for John for lighting the menorah on the 8th night. So everyone's asking me, what am I going to speak about tonight? I said it flows, depends the energy in the room. So now that everyone has eaten well, had a little something to drink, I feel like I want to speak about possibly one of the greatest stories in our entire Torah. And that's the story of, guess who? It's not in our Torah. The story of Joseph. It's a story that I think every single person can relate to. Boys, girls, you're young, you're old, you've made it, you lost it, you're looking to make it again. It really is a story that we can all relate to and hopefully learn from. So let's just jog a couple of our memories, what we've been reading about over the past couple weeks in our Torah, and remind ourselves who Yosef really is. So first of all, he was his father's favorite son. He was the favored one. And his brothers were very jealous of him. Rightfully so. It's not fair to favor one child over the others. And they wanted to kill him. And they finally sold him, and he's working as a slave, and he makes his way up, and as soon as he thinks he's finally getting someplace, he gets into trouble with his boss's wife, and then he's thrown into jail. And he's in jail for 12 years. And finally he comes out of jail, and he's put in front of the most powerful person of that time, which was Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And he told Pharaoh, I can't interpret any dreams. It's only God who interprets dreams. And Pharaoh was an atheist. Pharaoh thought that he was God. He told Pharaoh about the seven cows and the 7 stalks all mean that there's going to be 7 good years, and then there's going to be 7 very hard years. And then we read about how Pharaoh he appoints Joseph to be viceroy. Viceroy is like the second most important person in the entire world at that time. So Joseph literally went from rags to riches. Something that someone's always trying to sell you. Oh, you want to make this quickly, or you want a passive income, right? We'll speak about that a little later, okay? I have a whole theory on that. And Yosef makes it. He's this powerful viceroy, and he tells Pharaoh, we got to prepare. Another very important life lesson. When things are going good, don't blow it all away. Ration. Prepare. There's going to be a wave. There's always waves. In the economy, in one's personal life, in an emotional life, financially. There's always waves. When things are going good, prepare for if or when things start getting rocky. And this is what Yosef did on a national level. He made sure that everyone was saving of their food, of their grain, for the hard years, for the difficult years. And lo and behold, as prophesied, after 7 years of plenty, the 7 years of famine started. And 2 years in, this is when Yaakov, Yosef's father, tells the rest of his brothers, go down to Egypt and go buy food for us. We hear, there are rumors that food can be purchased in Egypt. Who's selling all the food? Yosef. He's the one in charge of selling and distributing all the food. So the brothers come down. And the brothers come down, and this is where it's going to get very, very interesting. The brothers come down, and they come down in 10 different entrances to Egypt. 10 brothers came. Benjamin was left behind. And they came all in different entrances. And there's a couple different reasons why they came through different entrances. One reason is because they didn't want to be suspected to be spies or a little militia or something of the fact. But another interpretation is they were looking for their brother Joseph. We're talking about people who were extremely smart, Joseph's brothers. They knew that if Yosef was sold as a slave, where do all slaves end up? In Egypt. And they knew Yosef was wise in his own right, and very capable. So they were looking for him. And they come into Egypt, and they come to buy food, and we know the whole interaction with Yosef and the brothers. And this is where I want to fast forward to when the brothers come back with Benjamin. They come back with Benjamin, and Yosef is still putting up this hard facade. He's putting up this very difficult interaction with his brothers. And the Torah tells us that his brothers didn't recognize Yosef. Imagine not seeing your brother for 22 years. It's very, very difficult to imagine you're not going to recognize them, your brother, your sister. I'm not talking a cousin. I'm not even talking a neighbor. Your own flesh, your brother. And we're not talking one-on-one. It's 10 to 1. All 10 brothers, not even one of them, thought for a moment, hey, could this be our brother that we came to look for on top of it all? And not one of them recognized him. And now I want to get into the first topic I wanted to speak about, and that is, there's a midrash. A midrash is an oral transmission of Torah that was recorded, was written after the giving of the Torah in Mount Sinai. And the midrash tells us that there was a certain rabbi. His name was Abba Kohen Bardila. Not a very common name, besides for the Kohen part. And this rabbi, every single time, at least on a yearly basis, when he would read the story of Yosef, he would break down crying. Now, not because he was over-emotional, but listen to what he says. He says, when Joseph reveals himself to his brothers, he can't anymore. Yosef himself cries. It's like he's playing hard, but there's only so long you can play very difficult and put on this pose to your brothers after so long and after so much you've went through. And Yosef breaks down crying, and he tells his brothers, Ani Yosef, I'm Joseph. Ha'od avi chai, is my father still alive? And the Torah tells us that they did not have anything to say. They were speechless because they were embarrassed. They just couldn't say anything. It's like they're having this conversation day in, day out for a little while with him. And he says, by the way, I'm Joseph. Is my father alive? And they are left speechless. It's like mic drop, literally. Boom. Every time this rabbi, Abba Kohen Bardila, would read this story, read this verse, he'd break down crying. And he'd say the following. And this is, I think, very, very important. He'd say, if the brothers, those of you who've ever learned Gemara, this may ring a bell, yeah? If the brothers who were rebuked from their little brother had nothing to say, they couldn't answer, right? They were rebuked. I'm Joseph, that's the biggest rebuke. I'm still alive. Your whole plan, everything you wanted was fake, was a fail. If they couldn't answer their little brother who rebuked them, he said, what's going to be when we pass away? When we pass away, we meet our Maker. We meet Hashem. And He's going to ask us questions. Why did you do this? I told you not to. Why didn't you do this? I commanded you to do this. And each and everything. The rabbi said, how am I going to answer that question? But listen to how powerful this comparison is. Yosef, compared to the brothers, Yosef would be considered a junior, correct? He was younger. Hashem, as awesome and as powerful as God is always referred to as at least our senior, our superior, correct? So if the brothers couldn't take a rebuke from their junior, explaining their mistake. How could we, at the end of our lives, when we stand in front of God, how will we ever be able to answer and take the rebuke from God, who's our superior? And this concept of Yosef's brothers not being able to answer Yosef was something that made this rabbi break down in tears every time he learned this. So I have a couple questions on this. First of all, what's the big idea? So it's a biblical story. It does string a chord, not being rebuked for mistakes and not being able to answer, but so much so that he broke down crying every single time. What's so important about this? So listen to the following. Let's analyze what Yosef tells his brothers. Number one, he tells them, I'm Yosef. Then he asks, is my father still alive? Is my father still alive? A moment ago you brought in Benjamin, our little brother, and you told me he's still alive. Is Yosef even asking now, is daddy still alive? Of course daddy's alive, nothing changed. And even if something did change, how would you know? It's all the way back in the land of Israel, and here you're in Egypt. So that's number one. Number two, wouldn't it be proper, if Yosef's proving that we're all brothers over here, shouldn't Yosef say, for those of us who understand the Hebrew language, shouldn't it say, Ha'od Avinu Chai? He's all our father. He should have said, is our father still alive? Not, is my father still alive? Ha'od Avichai. Correct? 2 questions. Third question. From the mere fact that the Torah is telling us that the brothers couldn't answer because they were embarrassed, what does that mean? That means they had something to say, but they couldn't say it. If you tell me that you are overcome with emotion, I can't give you an answer, or I can't articulate that answer, it means you have something to say, and there's something that's holding you back from saying it. So what did the brothers really want to say that they were not able to say? So listen to the following. This is going to answer all of these questions. Yosef was worried that the brothers would not believe him, that his own brothers would not believe him, that he's really Yosef. It was paining him that even when he says, I'm Yosef, they're going to look at him and say, no chance, no way. And this is why Yosef is telling them, it's me. But they couldn't recognize him. Why couldn't they recognize him? Oh, because he had a beard now, right? That we've all learned that before. Yosef had a beard now, 22 years later, because at 17, he had no beard. So they wouldn't recognize him. Really? Does that make any sense to you? If you don't see someone for 22 years and they had no beard before and now they have a beard, you're not going to recognize them? You ever go to Israel? And some of us have friends in Israel, they're getting married in the upcoming months, and so they changed, right? They're new people, they're different people. They didn't have a beard, now they have a beard, but you still recognize him. He's your friend, you went to high school with him, you know him, right? But Yosef's brothers, they couldn't recognize him. Ha'od Avichai, my father, is he still alive? Yosef looked exactly like Yaakov. They were literally twins. Just one was a younger version of the other. Right? Some of us look very much like our father or our mother. But identical twins, literally, Yaakov and Yosef looked identical. Just Yaakov looked a little older and Yosef looked a little younger. That's why he's saying, if you don't believe me that I'm Yosef, look at me, you'll see your father. Because without a beard, then that's me. That's the Yosef that you left me by. And now that I have a beard, well, now I look like your father. So it's me. It has to be me. He was bothered. But why is he so bothered that his brothers are not going to believe him? And how's it even imaginable to us that they didn't think it was him? Let me tell you the following. When he sits them down, the brothers, to eat with him, to dine with him, what happens? He sits each of his brothers down in order of age. He didn't say the names because of that obviously giving it away, but he sat Reuven right next to him. And then he pointed in the crowd, okay, you, which was Shimon, right next. And then Levi, and then Yehuda. Each and every one of the brothers in order of age. You're telling me they're not going to think that it's Yosef? He looks like his father. He looked like now, but now he has a beard. He's sitting them down based on their age, and they're all very close in age anyways, how didn't they even think it was Yosef? Listen to this answer. In their wildest dreams, they never could have imagined that the person sitting opposite them was their brother. It was just something that couldn't enter their minds. It was not even a possibility. There was no option that our little brother, the one we used to bully, the one we threw in the pit, the one we sold as a slave, he's the most important person. He's the one in control. The writing's on the wall. Everything is pointing to, this is your brother, but they can't imagine this is their brother. And this leads us to answer that last question. What did the brothers really want to say? You know what they wanted to say? They wanted to say, you're right, we messed up. The past 22 years of our life, we've been living in this denial, and we've been living in this idea that, yeah, our brother was a loser. He couldn't do anything. We sold him. We got rid of him. We didn't even want his dreams and his prophecies to come true. And everything Yosef predicted happened. Happened even greater than they could have ever even imagined. And this is what Yosef's brothers wanted to say. But do you know one of the hardest things to do in life is to admit. Admitting is so hard. Especially when you know you messed up royally, 100%. And that's what they did. They did exactly everything wrong. It's so hard. And this is why the rabbi was crying every time he learned this. Because we go through life and we think we're doing the right things. Or you know what? We know sometimes we're not doing the right things, but we justify what we do for being the right thing. We justify waking up late. We justify overeating, overdrinking, pushing off things that are important to be done. We always justify, because if we wouldn't justify, how could you live with yourself? We're very critical on other people. You see someone do something. How can she do that? How can he do that? So rude, impossible, I would never. Pause. You've done that, and worse. But we need to live with ourselves. It's a coping mechanism God gave us to be able to look in the mirror and say, okay, we have another day to live. We got another week. We have years to come. We got a lot to do. But at the end of one's life, when the real questions will be asked, and you're going to be thinking, wow, is that even a good answer? Is that a valid answer for this ridiculousness that I did once, twice, my whole life? How I treated this person? How I maybe wasn't so honest? How I was lazy? How I didn't do what I knew was the right thing to do? This is what brought this rabbi to tears every time. God's going to ask, why? How? And what am I going to say? It's a very, very scary thing. And this all comes from Joseph's brothers. They thought at the time that what they were doing was the right thing to do. And then, from one moment to the next, everything comes crumbling down. And the only thing they could say is, I messed up. I'm sorry. But they couldn't even say that, because one of the hardest things to do is admit. Admitting to yourself sometimes may be hard. Admitting to another is always hard. And admitting to your junior is very difficult as well. Sometimes you have someone that works for you. Or maybe a coworker that's been there. You know, you've been there for a long time, they just came in, and you really messed up. Whatever it was, you messed up. And it's your employee, your coworker, and they look at you and say, are you going to have the guts and say, yeah, I made a mistake? Or are you Mr. or Mrs. Perfect? No, I don't make mistakes. There's no one that doesn't make mistakes. Mistakes are good, because that's the only way you learn. The smarter way is to learn from other people's mistakes, right? But you can't always do that. You don't always have the luxury to do that. But a real person, a real human being, is able to make the mistake, admit, and try better next time. That's a very important lesson we learned from Joseph and his brothers. And then we look at Yosef. And his father comes to meet him. Yaakov was told that Yosef is still alive, and he was excited to come and see his son after 22 years. He sees him from afar, and he says, could that be him? Could that be my son Joseph? And the Torah tells us of one of the most awkward interactions. They come to see each other. They come to hug each other. The Torah tells us, Yosef hugs his father and cries. And what's Yaakov doing? Somebody tell me? Anybody? I know someone knows. Okay, you're being shy, being humble, it's okay. Yaakov says, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. So just picture the following. Two people are hugging, father and son, after 22 years of not seeing each other. When one was ripped away from his father, the other thought his son was dead. Naturally, the son is hugging his father, crying, weeping. You know what the father's doing? He has his hand around his son's head, with his 3 fingers over his eyes, saying Shema Yisrael. Does that make any sense to you? After 22, he couldn't find another time to do Shema? He couldn't have done Shema before he saw him, as he was walking towards him. No. At the moment that he's hugging his son, he has to say Shema at that time. I know Shema is important. It's like the most important phrase in our entire Torah. Granted. But a moment with your son. Hug him, cry with him, kiss him, something. No. I gotta hug him, and while I'm hugging him, I gotta do Shema. Does that make any sense? Listen to how powerful Yaakov was. This is very deep, and there's a very practical lesson. When Yaakov heard that Joseph was alive, he had mixed emotions. So look, sometimes we have mixed emotions in our life, right? Sometimes you're excited, sometimes you're scared. Sometimes you're happy and you're worried, all at the same time. It's natural. If Yaakov Avinu felt that, be sure that it's normal that you go through that sometimes. It's okay. On one hand, Yaakov was super excited. His son's alive. What could be better? On the other hand, he was questioning, is this still the same boy, the same righteous man that I raised and I intended to raise? Right? Yaakov kept Yosef by him all the time. He taught him nonstop. He prepared him for life. He had a completely different track set for Yosef. Yosef was ripped away from him. On one hand, he's happy he's alive. On the other hand, is he still righteous? Is he still a good man? And then he sees him. And the brothers say, yeah, it's him. He's really good. He's still religious. He still believes in God. He's still doing a lot of good things. Now, what's Yaakov thinking? This is very deep, but it's so important. Yaakov's thinking, I remember when I was exiled. Where was Yaakov exiled to? To his uncle's house, Lavan. What did he do in Lavan's house? He worked as a shepherd. He married his cousins. He had children. He built a family. He built wealth. And when Yaakov meets his brother Esav, what does he tell his brother? I'm a simple man. Im Lavan garti. I lived with Lavan. V'taryag mitzvot shamarti. And I kept all 613 mitzvot. I'm a simple shepherd. I'm a pious, religious man. I'm not a minister. I'm not a fancy person. I'm a simple person. Yaakov was thinking in his mind, the only way someone can be ripped away from his family and still be connected to God is if they're not a fancy schmancy person. If they're simple. But if he's a special person, such as a viceroy, like Yosef was, there's no way he could be as committed to God as he was before. So Yaakov was worried. He's like, on one hand he's happy, on the other hand, am I going to be happy with the way my Yosef turned out to be? He was scared about that. He was thinking, do you know how many times he must have had to compromise and eat non-kosher with the Egyptians to get this elected position? He didn't know the whole backstory. Do you know how many times he had to probably, bribe someone, lie to someone, pay someone off, be a little dishonest, skip a prayer, skip some Torah study, all of the regular part of his regimen that should have made him who he was supposed to be. Yaakov's thinking he must have given up a lot of that to achieve this. And that's an important lesson. Because anything in life is attainable. You just need to think, what am I going to give in order to get that? Everything. Am I going to give some of my sleep to wake up earlier in the morning to go to the gym? Or no, am I going to wake up at 9, 10 o'clock and roll into the office at 11? Or am I going to be responsible, go to sleep a little earlier, wake up a little earlier, go to the gym, and then go to work? Am I going to give up some of my time in the day, the middle of the day, to pray mincha? Or am I going to give up an hour or an hour and a half to come on a Wednesday night for a Torah class? You're giving something because you're getting. Same thing is with work. If you want to advance in whatever it is that you're busy with, the only way to get there is you're going to have to give something up. And that's where my pet peeve against passive income is this fairy tale that people always try to sell you just to make money on you. Nothing really is ever easy. Anything that comes easy, easy come, easy go. Hard work pays off. And giving towards achieving that success is able to be done by anybody. You just need to analyze, what do I need to give in order to get my goal? Is it worth it? And make it happen. Same thing with a relationship. If you are dating someone, or if you're married, or if you want to get married, there's a proper way how to treat either him or her. And based on the way you treat that person, that's giving. That's how it's going to be reciprocated back. Are you going to treat that person with respect? Or are you going to talk down to them? Are you going to care for that person? Or are you only looking to take? It's the same rule in every single situation. You can get to your goal once you've set it, if you determine what you need to give to get there, and if you're going to actually do it or not. You want to be rich? It's very easy to be done. It can be done. There's very few rules that you need to follow if you want to be rich. Are you willing to give what it takes in order to get there? Happy. Who doesn't want to be happy? Same thing. There's certain things you need to do in order to be happy. Are you doing that in order to be happy? Or are you just waiting for happiness to fall in your lap? You're waiting for money to fall in your lap. It's not going to happen. You got to go and get it. You got to be willing to give in order to get. You got to go to get. If you don't go, if you don't give, you're not getting. So Yaakov is looking at this scenario of his son, Yosef. He seems very successful. I mean, my sons are telling me he's still religious. He's still God-fearing. And on the other hand, he's the most important person. He's the most powerful person. He can't be. He really just can't be all that successful. It's impossible. Something had to give. But then when Yaakov saw his son, what he did was he wrapped his hand around him and he said, Shema Yisrael, out of love and thanks to Hashem, to see his son outdo him. You understand? In Yaakov's mind, when you're ripped away from your family, then you can't do both. You can't be ultra successful and observant at the same time. That was his experience in Lavan's house. But now he sees his son, who was ripped away from his family, in exile, literally, in Egypt, alone. No support system, no community, no family. And he sees him that he is spiritually successful, and he's also materialistically successful. And he's thanking Hashem. Hashem, thank you for allowing my son to be greater than I. That's why, that is a deep interpretation onto why Yaakov is saying Shema when he sees his son Yosef. And the lesson is clear to us all. We're not Yosefs in any way, through all the stories that we hear about. But there's something we can learn from Yosef. And we have an advantage that Yosef didn't have. Yosef was ripped away and he was all alone in Egypt. We're not alone. Some of us have family here in Florida. We all hopefully have friends. We have communities. We have this community that Daniel has created. Now he's here. Put your hands together for Daniel. He's on out again. We have circles of influences in our lives that we're able to choose. And that will shape us to who we will be. Yosef was alone. All of his interactions, all of his influence was negative. And he triumphed over that. And that's beautiful. And that's almost impossible. It was so impossible that even Yaakov didn't expect that from his own son. We don't have that test. We could have that test if we make the mistakes of secluding ourselves from good influence and from community and from good friends. But we also have the ability in the city that we live in to surround ourselves with intellectual people, with people who are looking to grow, looking to advance in life, looking for success in every realm. If you want that, surround yourself with those type of people. If you want to be rich, you know what the number one rule is? Live next to rich people. Be friends and live next to rich people. That's the number one rule. Besides for having the drive for wanting it. And the same thing is for every single goal. You want to be more connected to God? Live in a community of people who keep Shabbat, who eat kosher, who you're going to befriend people that are like-minded, that all have that goal. Whether they're there or they're working towards that, that's fine. Whatever it is that you want, make sure you surround yourself with people that have similar aspirations, and you'll get there. Whether they're there or they're getting there, you will get there as well. And we have that gift. That in the 21st century, we are able to live amongst people, if we choose to, live amongst people that can influence us in a positive way. And you know what the hard part about this is? Is that if we don't choose this way, it's so easy to slip the other way. If you don't actively choose where you're going to live and who you're going to hang out with, surround yourself with, who you're going to party with, if you don't choose, by default, you're going to end up with people that bring you down. It's just the way it works. It's nature. Until you actively make the decision to want to grow, to advance, and to do better, you're going to come way down. It's the law of gravity. And therefore, if we can take away something very important from tonight, it is that idea of having a support group, a buddy, friends, family, community, people that help us advance in life, that lift us up, is so, so important. That we will never come to that situation where you're so embarrassed you can't even answer. Not in this life and not in the life to come. Who would want that embarrassment? It's such a achi feeling. But on the contrary, when you are able to own the decisions that you make, to look back and be proud of the decisions that you've made, that's what you want to be known for. That's what you want. That will bring you happiness, which is something that we all want. Success, happiness. and only good things. So in honor of the 8th night of Hanukkah, hopefully Hashem will bless us all in the same way that over 2,000 years ago He made miracles for our ancestors. He'll continue making miracles for us. But the first miracle starts with us. You making the right choices. You looking for those miracles. You make those choices, you look for those miracles, they're right in front of you. Hashem should bless us all. Chag Sameach, everyone. Have a great rest of the year.